Ladies and gentlemen, we did it! Yes! There we go! Yeah, we finally got it done. This is the last Why I Want episode for first round talent in the 2019 NHL entry draft. Every other video in the Why I Want series after this one will focus on guys outside of the first round, and every prospect video about guys in the first round is not going to be a Why I Want. I still haven't covered a lot of the first round talent that I would like to talk about. I think going through my channel, it's kind of evident to see that I haven't talked about guys like Cousins or some of the other highly touted players like Bud Colson, and I haven't talked about some other guys that I think are going to be really good or who have underrated potential, guys like Tomasino, Connor McMichael, etc. There are other guys that I would like to talk about, but this is the last one for Why I Want. At least in the first round. We're talking about Alex Newhook today, and Newhook is a guy that I've talked about on the channel before. I made a video about Newhook all the way back in August, I believe. It was before I went to LA, and that was a very premature video. But for what I had to work with at the time, before Newhook played his draft year, I think it was a pretty okay video. It's just that today, now that his draft year is done, I want to take an extended look at Newhook and why I would want him for the Vancouver Canucks. First off, let's talk about who he is. Alex Newhook, a lot of you guys from the lower mainland might know because the majority of my fan base is Vancouver-based. Newhook is a BCHL talent, the best player in the BCHL this past season, playing for the Victoria Grizzlies. Newhook, in his 53 Grizzlies games played, led the BCHL with 102 points. He had the most assists with 64, and he was third in goals with 38. Newhook was legitimately a beast, and for the league that he plays in, he was the best player hands down. He was playing on a pretty stacked Grizzlies team, but that shouldn't deter you from thinking about Newhook as a valuable player, because Alex Newhook is a guy who has a lot of comparables to other BCHL guys over the past few years. Let's take a look at probably the most obvious one, Tyson Jost. Jost was a player who, in his draft -1 year when they were 16, he had a worse year than Newhook. Newhook had himself 66 points in 45 games played. That's good enough for a 1.47 points per game when he was 16. Tyson Jost, when he was 16, had just under a point per game in 46 games. So Newhook's 16-year-old year was significantly better than Jost, and a lot of people were starting to say, okay, Jost went 10th overall, and Newhook is better than Jost, so that means that Newhook is probably going to go a little bit higher than 10th, right? Just based off of all the mock drafts. I know the Hockey News had Newhook at number 2 overall at some point last year, which is great, but Newhook in his draft year had himself a little bit of a lower projection than Jost. 102 points in 53 games played, that's good enough for a 1.92 points per game. Tyson Jost, on the other hand, in his draft year, 104 points, 48 games played, so a 217 points per game. Newhook was worse than Jost in terms of their draft year production, but you gotta take a look at it though. Newhook was first in the league in points this year, and second on the Victoria Grizzlies in points was also draft-eligible Alexander Campbell with 67. Then you got a defenseman down there at 63. This is kind of notable too, because if you take a look at Tyson Jost and his draft year, which was better than Alex Newhook's, Jost was playing with the stacked Penticton Vs. Jost wasn't even the highest scoring player on his own team. Scott Conway had 116 points, and Dante Fabro, who you probably know too, had 67 points as a defender. Jost was playing on a stacked team, a better team, and he was playing in a league where he was third in scoring and not first. Newhook was the best player this year. And comparing that directly to Jost isn't really all that fair because Jost was playing with a little bit of a higher scoring team in a little bit of a higher scoring league. So it's not direct. Now that that's out of the way, the fact that Newhook and Jost aren't necessarily comparable, let's actually talk about Newhook and what he brings to a hockey club. When you talk about Newhook and his style of play, there are a few players that really stand out as to being really similar to how he plays. Not in terms of skill, ability, and ceiling, but in terms of the style and how they play the game. 3 names, really, and it's kind of gonna be crazy when you hear this, but this is what I have lined up as my own list. Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, Jack Hughes. I'm not saying that he's gonna be Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, or Jack Hughes, but I'm saying that he plays like them, wherein his skating is the main tool and his really good offensive skills are balanced, performed, and executed through his skating. Newhook is said by some as the fastest player in the draft, period. And that's just because of his straight line speed, his power, it's all there. His edges are really good, and his agility, acceleration, it's all top class. It's just that Jack Hughes is a little bit more agile. Jack Hughes is quicker, more elusive in his skating and his stride, which is why Jack Hughes is dubbed as the consensus best skater of the draft. But it's no tall tale to say that Newhook is probably second. I'd say that there are a few guys who could probably challenge for second, third, and fourth in the draft when it comes to skating. Dominic Vansori is a guy who comes to mind. Alex Newhook is certainly in that conversation, and he's leading the charge amongst most hockey minds. Newhook is a guy with a good shot, he's got really good passing ability and good offensive instincts, but his skating is the main driver. That is the best thing about his game, and it's what's going to propel him into being a good NHL player should that potential reach him. This is kind of what Will Scouching on his scouting report for Newhook said, but you know how when you're watching the Colorado Avalanche and you see Nathan MacKinnon touch the puck? The second he gets it, he's off and away, and you notice, okay, that guy is an impact maker. That is the same thing you get with Newhook. It's the same level of impact. Now, obviously, it's in the BCHL, so it's not going to be like super translated, but the impact is there, and that's something that he has going for him. It's just that going into the next level, he's going to need to develop other things like harder work ethic in the defensive zone, more powerful strides, etc. So Newhook in general is certainly a guy who exhibits top-line elite potential, and that is basically the ceiling here. Should everything go right in Boston College, Newhook certainly has the potential to become one of the best players of this draft, period. We've seen what he's done with the other guys in this draft class. Playing at the U18s just a little bit ago, Newhook was tied with Krebs, and he was over Cousins for the best player on Canada's U18 team. And I think this tournament really cemented the fact that he's able to play with the best, and he's able to keep up with the best, and he is one of the best. Which is why Newhook is a guy that I want for the Vancouver Canucks. If we're talking about guys who exhibit speed, who exhibit strong play offensively, strong instincts, passing and shooting abilities, Newhook is a guy here. And ultimately, going into Boston College, which is where he's going to play next year, he's really going to have an opportunity to develop into the player that he can be, especially playing alongside of Matthew Boldy and in front of Spencer Knight. Boston College is going to be good next year, and Newhook is going to lead the charge, at least if he develops properly. Which is why I believe Newhook is going to be one of the most dangerous players of this draft going forward, and I want him for the Vancouver Canucks. As a guy who is primarily a center, 5'11", 190, he's not necessarily big, but he's not necessarily small either. And having Newhook as a guy who could probably play on the wing would be incredible if you wanted to slot him alongside of Pettersson and Besser. Now, I know it's the same argument every time. Oh, playing with Pettersson and Besser. But what if Newhook was a center on the Canucks and he remained as a center? We'd have a fantastic center core again. Pettersson, Newhook, Horvat, and Gaudette. That would be amazing. So, Newhook as a guy who's projected to go maybe around the early teens, he's certainly somebody who I could definitely see bouncing up in the draft, kind of like Barrett Hayton did, because Newhook, alongside of Tomasino, probably are the two guys who I believe certainly have that jumping power, because of their ability as a center, and because of their skill. Newhook particularly, playing for the Vancouver Canucks, that would be cool, because the guy's playing in BC already. A lot of us who follow the BCHL are already kind of used to him, and Newhook is a fantastic consolation prize for anybody who is looking for a player like Jack Hughes. That is also a point from William Scouching's scouting report. The fact that Jack Hughes is a guy who's a shifty, speedy, offensive dynamo center with great offensive abilities and skating that drives the play, Newhook is kind of the same thing. Obviously, he doesn't have that potential. He doesn't have that 100-point ceiling like Jack Hughes does. I'd say that Newhook probably maxes out as a 60, 70-point guy in his prime if everything goes right. But the uncertainty of playing in the BCHL and the fact that he's going a different route than most prospects is certainly something that could be seen as a little bit of a hindrance here. But Newhook as a hockey player has sky-high potential. Whether or not he reaches that, it's kind of up for debate, but the potential is there. And he certainly has all the tools that he needs if he wants to become an effective number one center at the NHL level. Obviously, there are a few things that he could improve on: defensive coverage, decision-making in his passes, turnovers, all that stuff, but Newhook, as a raw talent, certainly has skill. Which is why I want him for the Vancouver Canucks. And with that, we wrap up our first round for why I want 2019. Check out the next videos. We're going to go over second round guys, third round guys, fourth round guys, because there are so many prospects and so many players that I think the Canucks could benefit from their services. Hope you guys enjoyed this video of Gaming, and bye.